Now, we have disastrous new disclosures that the government lied about progress in the war in Afghanistan. So now this is according to a trove of documents obtained by the Washington Post. Uh, Now, according to these documents, senior U.S. officials knowingly lied to the public about progress throughout the 18-year war in Afghanistan. Now consider this, right? People that were just barely even born or hadn't been born yet are now of age to vote throughout the time, and throughout that entire time, throughout somebody's lifetime, we have been at war in Afghanistan. That is one disastrous fact. And when you think about that, 18 years. I'm 36. Half of my life, we have been at war in Afghanistan. Disaster. Now, let me get to more disastrous details. Just from that, because I feel like we need to take a moment, just kind of absorb how long we've been at this to really grasp what's coming next. In private interviews conducted by a watchdog that spanned the Bush, Obama, and Trump administrations, which the Post obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request, U.S. officials frequently acknowledged a lack of understanding, strategy, and progress in a war they regularly described publicly as being on the cusp of success. Interviewees described a deliberate disinformation campaign meant to spin discouraging statistics as evidence that the U.S. was winning this war. In fact, according to one interviewee, Bob Crowley, an Army colonel and senior counterinsurgency advisor to U.S. military commanders in 2013 and 2014, said this, quote, "Every data point was altered to present the best picture possible. Surveys, for instance, were totally unreliable, but reinforced that everything that we were doing was right, and we became a self-licking ice cream cone." Now, that's a curious turn of phrase. I've never heard that before. But look, I mean, what else would you call it? It's basically, you could go into much more, I think, obscene imagery with that. But basically, it's that. Everything that they did, they took all the information, even though it was negative, they would spin it to create a positive image about the war and see, we're doing everything right in Afghanistan. In fact, that's why we need to do a surge. That's why we need a second surge. That's why we need even more money in Afghanistan. Because everything that we're doing is working so splendidly. Disastrous. All right, so now, again, we've got government officials basically serving up propaganda about the disaster of this war in Afghanistan to try to convince us that it's not actually a disaster. Now, by the way, this is a war that we didn't need to be in. This was started by Bush and Cheney, continued by Obama, and now Trump. And that's important because Obama and Trump both continued this lie. Now, one of the most damning quotes here in this is, and it comes from retired Navy SEAL Jeffrey Eggers. Eggers served as a White House staffer in the Bush and Obama administrations, by the way. He said this, quote, "After the killing of Osama bin Laden, I said that after the killing of Osama bin Laden, I said that Osama was probably laughing in his watery grave, considering how much we spent on Afghanistan." And he's right. Remember, Osama bin Laden. Look, I think he knew that the United States, if he attacked the United States, that we would do exactly what we did. And in the process, he hoped that we would destroy ourselves by launching senseless, endless wars in the Middle East. Well, that's kind of what we did. I mean, we haven't quite destroyed ourselves, but pretty close. Trillions of dollars spent, thousands, hundreds of thousands of innocent lives, and much more. And what was achieved? Do we have an end of terrorism? No. We have more terrorism. Are we more secure? Are we more safe? No, we're not. We're not any safer. In fact, we have lost some of our vaunted freedom, right? We have now a severe a security and surveillance state that is near unrivaled in the world. So that's the result. That's the result of going into what it was called the graveyard of empires. That's what they called Afghanistan. And here we were trying to literally westernize a country that clearly did not want us there. Now, I've got more quotes from this. Again, this is a disaster. In 2015, retired Lieutenant General Douglas Lute served as a top advisor on the war during the Bush and Obama administrations. Now, he told interviewers, quote, "We were devoid of a fundamental understanding of Afghanistan. We didn't know what we were doing." So that's, I guess, problem number one is we go there and we have no idea what we're doing. What are we trying to do? Are we trying to stabilize Afghanistan? Are we trying to regime change, like, westernize the country? Are we just trying to get payback for, what happened with Osama bin Laden, who, by the way, was in neighboring Pakistan at that point? What are we doing there? What's going on? What's the goal? None of those questions really could be answered by any of these people. And so, look, let me give you more quotes here, right? In the documents, for one, we see that there was no end goal, no idea what they were doing. Interviewees revealed fundamental disagreements about what strategy should be. In fact, an unidentified U.S. official told government interviewers back in 2015, quote, "With the Afghanistan-Pakistan strategy, there was a present under the Christmas tree for everyone." Now, what does that mean? A present under the tree for everyone. The comparison of, like, I don't know, we've got this strategy and we're going to compare it to Christmas. Disaster. He said, quote, "By the time you were finished, you had so many priorities and aspirations, it was like no strategy at all." One identified former State Department official called the U.S. goal to build a democracy in Kabul, quote, "idiotic." This official, back in 2015, again, these are interviews, said, quote, "Our policy was to create a strong central government, which was idiotic because Afghanistan does not have a history of a strong central government. The time frame for creating a strong central government is, get this, we've been at war in Afghanistan for 18 years, right? You know what the timeline that they were looking at? And this really goes back to when we're talking about they just want to endlessly occupy this country. Their timeline was 100 years to create a strong central government that would last in Afghanistan. We would have to occupy for 100 years, a century. I mean, wow. And of course, we didn't achieve that. And look, it shouldn't be up to us to dictate what we do in other countries, right? Nonetheless, we did achieve one thing. And this was another quote here. This is the former ambassador to Afghanistan, Ryan Crocker. He said this, quote, "Our biggest single project, sadly and inadvertently, of course, may have been the development of mass corruption." Now, you want to talk about corruption in Ukraine, right? The administration. What about the corruption that we created in Afghanistan by literally throwing them trillions of dollars? Again, this is a result of massive amounts of money, American money, being flooded into the country, trillions of dollars, and no idea what to do with it. And by the way, while we're doing this, while we're blanketing this other country with trillions of dollars, we also couldn't do at the same time healthcare for all Americans, right? Because we're busy nation building. And also, by the way, we couldn't let Flint get its water fixed. Can't get clean drinking water in Flint because we are massively bloating Afghanistan. And we're creating massive corruption. Didn't achieve a single thing. But again, what did you expect? In fact, this same official had one more quote on this. Quote, once it gets to the level I saw of corruption, when I was out there, it's somewhere between unbelievably hard and outright impossible to fix it. This is our legacy in Afghanistan. This is what we did for the Afghani people. And you wonder why they have no interest in having us there. And you wonder why every country has no interest in having us there and meddle in their affairs. This is our track record. Iraq, we broke it. Afghanistan, we didn't so much break it as in break ourselves against it. And for all those different, reasons that I outlined before, we're no more secure, we're no more free. In fact, we are less free. The fact that we have something called the Patriot Act, which takes away a lot of American freedoms and allows our government to essentially spy in on us. I mean, it's a disaster. And this is what happens when, you allow the government, or the government continues to lie on us, to lie to us in order to make a profit. We've got to end this ridiculous war now before we waste any more time, lives, or money on a country that clearly doesn't want us or need us. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a patreon.com/TYTNation set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.